Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Classroom Book Talk with Sora, the series where educators share how they bring books to life in their classrooms. I'm Naomi. I am the social media manager for Sora, and today we're discussing Sora Sweet Reads. The summer's coming, and the importance of keeping students engaged in reading all summer long. Joining me today is Kim from at CMSD LLS. Kim, thank you so much for being here. Can you start us off by telling us a little bit more about yourself?
I'm so happy and honored to be here. I'm Kim Ray, Director of Digital Learning and Library Services for Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. Also, just happen to be a certified school library media coordinator and a national board certified teacher, kind of in my former life. And I absolutely love talking about Sora and strategizing ways that we can get our students engaged in the Summer Sweet Reads program. So I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, as I was telling you earlier, I need to tell everyone else that is listening now. I asked my team for someone to talk about Sora Sweet Reads with, and they were like, "You must talk to Kim." And you seem just so excited about the program and everything. For those who are listening that may not be familiar, can you explain what Sora Sweet Reads is and why programs like this matter for students over the summer?
Absolutely. So, Sora Sweet Reads is not just Sora. So, we have a robust district shelf in Sora with a lot of circulation. But this is a specific curated collection and program inside of Sora that provides some extra benefits for kids. First and foremost, it is for students to engage in summer reading, to foster and promote that. So the titles are really high quality, engaging titles for K 12 students. They are all available in simultaneous use. Yay! No hold, no frustration with, hey, I want to read this cool book and it's not available. Promotes community as well because kids can read together, and that's really great for summer. And it's available, those books are available between May 18th and August 24th. So that's a
Yes.
really long, good time period. It
Mhm.
also includes, I think, about nine really good audiobooks in there as
Mhm.
well as ebooks. So
Yeah.
definitely a great program for kids to keep them reading.
Yes. Real quick, are you able to hear those birds?
Thought maybe that was just ambiance because we're
No,
talking.
it's just this mic is very good at picking up everything. My goodness.
Are those outdoors?
Yeah, actually, let me close my door.
Oh,
It's my balcony, so maybe that'll help. And it's like, this mic is powerful.
I guess.
Okay, now we can't hear them. Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm like, we're gonna have some birds chirping at the beginning of this
that's
episode.
just really cool though. I love it.
It's a beautiful day here in Cleveland.
Nice.
Yes, it's nice weather today. Yeah, and this mic is like really
That's a
crazy.
powerful mic.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Yeah, I was going to say that I have been looking at some of the young adult titles for Sora Sweet Reads. I'm a big young adult reader, even though I'm 27 years old, but I
We're all
love the
young
young adult
adults at
titles.
heart.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if you've ever read Scythe by Neil Schusterman.
No.
That's the book that got me back into reading after, like, college and everything, and it's a young adult title, so I'm always looking out for, young adult titles for Sora Sweet Reads.
That's great.
Yes. So my next question is, how does your school district typically encourage students to continue reading once summer break starts?
So, to begin with, messaging matters. Kids can't engage with something that they're not aware of.
Mhm.
Families can't promote it as well if they're not aware of that. So, we have really looked at a multifaceted. We're a large district with 140-ish thousand students right now. So, to make sure that all schools and stakeholders know about this is really a challenge. So we make sure that we put links to it in things like direct to teacher, our newsletter that goes to teacher, that we send it out to our principals, that our families are aware. We utilize all of our social media channels. We work with our partnerships team to make sure that we just did a preparing for summer webinar with families, and that's
Mm,
recorded and on the website. So lots of great messaging goes out. But something that I think is equally as important is that our school librarians take advantage of the end of the year when there's a lot of testing and kids are just exhausted, and they get them in there and have them pull up Sora and get into the sweet reads.
mhm.
In the next, couple of weeks, they'll be able to do that and get them excited. We are excited this year to do something new, which is utilize the reading challenge to do a district wide Sora Sweet Reads reading challenge. So we're launching that the last 2 weeks of school because our summer starts a little later.
Mhm,
And just to kind of get kids excited and, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do this and actually get them started while they're here so
mhm.
that they don't have to go home and try to learn something new.
Yeah, that's a lot of students, by the way, and that's incredible communication. I think that is a really great tip. And for any teachers listening out there, instead of just keeping it to like maybe their classroom, maybe making it more of a school-wide communication, and involving the parents, I feel like it's really important as well. Because sometimes if the parents know about it, they'll apply it to the students, even if the student like wasn't really very interested or something in it. Maybe they'll make them interested. Parents can do that. But yeah, that's awesome about the Sora Sweet Reads reading challenge because I love a reading challenge. And when I was in school, I feel like we did those like in my classroom, in my English classroom, and I loved it. Like here in Cleveland, Ohio, there's like a city reading challenge in general, and I'm always like reading and putting in my minutes that I listen to an audiobook and all these things. So I think that's an awesome thing to do for the students as well because I feel like they're really going to be reading and making it like fun and gamifying it,
Right,
which is
right.
really really great.
I love how you combine that, kind of with what's going on in your city. Our
Mhm,
public library also does a summer reading program, and it doesn't matter where you get the book. So they
mhm,
give out prizes. So we've linked that in our communication as well through the public library so they can utilize Sora Sweet Reads and address the reading challenge while they're doing this as well. So,
mhm.
yeah, for that gamification piece, they can definitely use this for that public library piece. So I love that.
Yes.
Great.
Our last guest was talking about how in their town, like, the ice cream shop, like, gives out, like, free scoops of ice cream or, like, free pizzas, very book it style, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love to hear the different things that every city is doing for reading and summer reading in general for the kids. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
So reading renaissance. I love that.
Yes, I love it. What would you say makes Sora Sweet Reads especially helpful or accessible for families during summer break?
So there's the obvious that it's available 24/7. If some of our students with the economy right now, people are having to shift some of that discretional funding into survival funding, groceries, saline, all of fuel, all of those kinds of things. And I feel like that has to impact students and the ability to go to the bookstore, or even, if people are working a second job, they may not have time to get to the public library, all of those kinds of things. Sora is available 24/7. It's right there. Our kids, it's such an ingrained part of the culture here. We use it as a repository both for curriculum items and leisure reading items, that kids know how to utilize it. And that right there removes barriers. I do want to say, too, that the goal of summer reading, of course, is to foster a love of reading, but it's also to combat that summer learning loss. And research shows us that reading is one of the most cognitively engaging and demanding things that students can do. So if families don't have time to invest in sitting there doing all of the other things that teachers and districts and people give out. If you only have time for one thing, it needs to be reading because
Mhm,
that's going to yield the highest results. And Sora provides that accessibility. I did notice too that this year's list, that the collection has a lot of books in Spanish. And that's an area that I'm seeing in our usage data that is booming this year. So that's another accessibility piece. There's also
mhm.
books on neurodiversity. So there's one in there I'm really excited to read. The Color of, I can't remember because I have it on my TBR list, my to be read list.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm really excited because it's just a really good range in there for everybody. And I think it's just the collection itself is provides just accessibility to knowledge and experiences, but it's also there 24/7 available for kids.
Yeah. You're 100% right about low income families being the most impacted households. We actually just had a webinar talking all about that. So, yeah, I love that you made that connection about the free simultaneous use books and how that can really help out some of our students this summer. But I also love that you mentioned the Spanish books. My first language is Spanish. So I definitely I grew up reading books in Spanish and I grew up in Puerto Rico and literacy it was there wasn't a lot of access to books like libraries like it's not like how libraries are here. So when I moved here, I was like, "Oh my god, it's like a whole new world." Yeah, and I didn't get to read that many books in Spanish even when I lived in Puerto Rico. I was reading in English already. So yeah, I've been trying to every now and then read a book in Spanish, even if it's like a kid's book or something, just to do that because I can. So I don't think I saw the Spanish titles, but now I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go check it out
I
this summer. Well, that's awesome.
love it.
Yes, you kinda touched on this already about but I'll ask it anyway in case you have any other insights, but the collection does include free simultaneous use ebooks and audiobooks across grades K through 12. How does that remove barriers for students?
Well, we've talked about, the economic barriers, but there's also just summer can look so different from family to family. It can be, I remember a summer when my mom was working full time and my sister and I had to go stay with my grandparents for the summer and they didn't have a robust, kind of collection at home. So I remember every weekend when I saw my mom, I'd call her on the phone and say, I need this book and that book and bring me books. And I think that this allows no matter what summer looks like for families, the accessibility is there 24/7. The other thing is our kids, it's very simple. It's very intuitive. So even for families that may not have seen their kids using it as much at home during the school year, it's very easy to navigate. So I think that's also a barrier that's removed as well. And I think it also for the kids who aren't going to get to go on those vacations this year, it's a little bit of a challenging year economically for many families. They can go on vacation through the book. So that's kind of
Mhm,
a connected piece. I was thinking about this question like when you need an escape, books and especially fiction will do that for a lot of us. So it
mhm,
gives kids even just the ability to go somewhere, cross time, cross space, cross imagination, cross all, and just get out of where you are now. So I think
mhm.
that's a little kind of connected piece as well. That's a barrier that this could overcome for kids as well this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when in the summers, like growing up, I feel like I lived in the library and I was just checking out so many books because like we have all of this free time like that we didn't have during the school year. So I definitely agree with that. That's awesome. Speaking of many different genres and fantasy worlds and all of this stuff, have you noticed any certain types of books or genres specific that students gravitate towards more during summer reading versus like the school year? I know personally I was reading a lot more series in the summer because I had time to, like, binge the whole series.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love that. Something that really, going back to research shows us that when students choose what they're reading,
Mhm,
no shocker there, more engaged. They're more likely to want to read. And I feel like during the year, a lot of times kids, especially secondary students, can have a lot on their plate for required reading. So they're reading books, but they're not necessarily choosing all of those books or
mhm,
even any of them. And so summer's kind of a really interesting thing. And I love to get into like what's being read the most and see the shift. I see a lot of shift towards series and fiction.
mhm.
So you hit that one right
Yay.
there. I have time to want,
Yes.
to move with this character
Mhm,
through this whole journey and evolution. So definitely that. I do see a lot of like fun fiction reading, but I feel like that's always a thing. But one thing I really notice with nonfiction is this shift towards things student interest based. So lots of Lego books,
mhm,
how to books, things that kids might be doing at home, like cooking and baking. I think that's always really interesting to me because
mhm,
it gives me kind of like a pulse of what they're actually doing in summer.
mhm.
Like, so student interest, nonfiction. I'm not really sure how to classify that, but just kind of really high interest nonfiction. So, not necessarily as much, we see a lot of animals during the year,
Mhm.
but then it just shifts to these more fun things that kids are actually doing at
Yeah,
home.
more like hobbies, I guess they have
Yeah.
probably have a lot more time to do things or they're bored or something, but
Yes,
yeah, I
gaming books, lots
mhm,
of gaming. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and how you said about the series, I will always remember, like, the summer that I read all of the Percy Jackson series, so I bet that some of the students are doing that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But you kind of, also, if I ever ask a question that you're like, "I kinda already answered that," feel free to pass on it, but you touched on this a little bit about, like, reading being more of, like, an assignment compared to, like, fun. How do you help students feel excited about choosing their own books? And you talked about that as well, about them choosing their own books and what they want to read, instead of seeing summer reading as, like, an assignment.
Right. So a lot of that has to do with kind of the culture where they're doing the reading. But one of the things that we can do, and there's a great feature in Sora that can get kids really excited about their TB and really teach them that to have a TBR list is something everybody should have. But this feature is the wish list feature. So one of the things we do before we launch them is to get them into Sora to build their wish list and let them roam and navigate. So that's the beauty of the end of the year. When they come to us, they're tired from testing and they really enjoy looking for books and talk. We let them talk to each other and really build out these TBR lists for summer. And that's important, I think, for kids to go just with it already done and they're already excited before you let them go. And and later on, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but having launch activities, I think is really cool, like an official launch activity to get them excited as well. So it's more like, this is what you get to do, not what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like you get to, and you get to choose this, and you get like making sure that you're intentional about that communication and that language used with kids. They're so used to being told, get out your book and read blah, blah, blah. Get out this book and read blah, blah, blah. Now you get to. We only have a little bit of time. A lot of it's just how we broach it with kids, right?
Yeah. That's a
Like,
great reframe as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
reframe it for them.
Yeah.
And I think we can do that as much as we can here before we send them home and get them
Mhm.
excited.
Yeah, I feel like my English teacher growing up, I did a good job at that as well, because I remember she'd be like, "We only have, like, 10 minutes of reading time," and I remember every time those 10 minutes were up, everyone in the classroom was like, "No, can we get, like, more time, please?" So, that's an awesome little trick there, and I do love the wish list moment. That kind of reminded me of when my mom for, like, Christmas time would be like she'd give me a magazine and be like, "Circle, like, anything you'd want Santa to bring you," and
Right.
I'll ask him and see if that's gonna happen. So that's really cool, and then for most of the time with Sora, it's not like Santa, like, you'll probably get to read all of these books if
Yes.
you make the time. So
Yeah.
I love that idea of, like, a little, classroom moment where teachers are with the students and been, like, doing a little wish list, that's really cool, especially with, like, book to movie adaptations and stuff coming up in the
Right.
year.
Right.
They can definitely get them excited about read this during the summer, and then you get to watch the movie when it comes out later this year or next year, whenever it is, so
Yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
definitely thought about that when I saw there's so much, and I'm excited about this, but so much Wonder Woman is well represented in this
Mhm.
collection.
Yeah.
And I was, oh, that is so cool. You can do the reading and then
Mhm.
watch movie series. And, you know, it is great. I think that's a really good call out, Naomi.
Yeah. And they're separate. I know they're completely separate, Wonder Woman and Supergirl, but there is a Supergirl movie coming out this summer, so they can definitely be, like, very comics,
Right.
focused. Yeah, but I
Right.
think that is awesome. I did see the Wonder Woman, comics. I'm also a really big graphic novel comic book person, so yeah, I was looking at those as well.
Fantastic.
Yes. You touched a little bit on audiobooks earlier, and I was wondering, what role do you think audiobooks play in summer reading, especially for reluctant readers or very busy families on the go?
I love this question so much. Love it. I love it. Audiobooks are so tremendously powerful And I think there's been this kind of, well, if you're just listening to it, you're passive. But actually, the research shows that the cognitive benefits are exactly the same as listening to an audiobook as they are reading a physical or an ebook. Yay, audiobook.
Yeah.
Because we know that in our culture, we are busy, and the audiobook just ratchets up that accessibility measure
Mhm.
for families. But one of the things I know that audiobooks can really do for busy families is create a sense of community around reading. So it's great if you have I'm the mother of a voracious reader and a reluctant reader. And that's been an interesting. I always call the voracious reader my mini me, and we always just love talk books. And he's 24 and we still do this. He'll still sit across from me and we'll talk books for an hour. The reluctant reader was such a challenge. I didn't know what to do with him, even as an educator. That is, I mean, like, what? How can you not love to read?
Mhm.
But I found audiobooks were a really great tool because I didn't have to have follow-up discussions with my like I knew my oldest was going to come and talk to me and we were going to discuss books. My youngest, audiobooks gave us a chance to laugh together. Once, listening to a Diary of a Wimpy Kid, even we would laugh together to talk about deep things together on occasion, when we're listening to it, swapping out that movie in the car for an audiobook, I think is such a powerful thing for families to do because they just give us a tool for the other connected piece, which is oral language. And so when you talk about books, you build that whole package listening, speaking, right? Reading, I just think that's really the value of audiobooks. They also build fluency and vocabulary in we just crack up because that reluctant reader has one of the strongest vocabularies in the family. And the only thing I attribute that to is
Mhm.
audiobooks because I don't know where else he would have gotten that. So they really are tremendous for building vocabulary, especially if you have an auditory learner. They will grab on to that. And I think that's just really vital as well. So I think community, it goes beyond
Mhm.
just reading a book, but you're reading a book together without even having to try.
Yeah, I've yet to do like a road trip audiobook, and I need to find one that maybe my partner and I can listen to or something. But it's funny because in my family everyone's always like, "We don't know where you came from," because my mom does not read. My dad reads like historical fiction every now and then, but like I am a very avid reader and like my mom hasn't picked up a book. Maybe she's maybe read like a handful of books in her lifetime. So my kid better be a reader or they're gonna be listening to a lot of audiobooks in the car
That's
even if they
right.
don't want to.
You guys will be audible and you will be leveraging all of those
Yes.
resources for sure.
Yes,
But yeah,
100%.
I think
Mhm.
it's just a great way. And sometimes those kids don't even know they're reading, right?
Mhm, mhm.
That's the benefit as well.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you about, vocabulary. My first language is Spanish, and when I was growing up, I would, like, listen to whatever was on the TV, and I somehow figured out how to put captions on the TV, so I would read the captions and listen to it, and that's how I learned English. So, it's definitely I just picked it up. So,
So cool.
yeah. I feel like a lot of kids that live in Puerto Rico, that's kinda how we learn English is just watching Disney Channel.
That's great.
And picking it up, but I will say I feel like I have a pretty great vocabulary, and it's all due to reading. Because when
Right.
I lived in Puerto Rico, I basically just read in English, like The Hunger Games and all those books, so, yeah, I definitely
You were highly motivated. And that's really the biggest. Like, if you get someone who's motivated to learn to
Mhm.
read and motivated to read, you can overcome. Like you can do it so fast,
Yeah.
learn so quickly. That's
And
cool.
yeah, especially for the kiddos with Sora Sweet Reads having some, like, Spanish books, like, if
Right.
people really wanted to learn Spanish,
Right.
it's definitely a great tool to try to learn. Yeah, and you kinda talked a little bit about this earlier, but are there any other, like, creative ways that educators or librarians you think can promote Sora Sweet Reads before the summer officially starts?
Absolutely. So we picked up some of the ideas I've seen at schools. We really empower our school librarians to be the catalyst for this in our schools. So one of the things this year we've really been pushing is a launch day. So kind of really make this a thing for kids, get them excited, officially launch it. And one of the I just thought this was really cool. One example, we had a school librarian, and he worked with his 5th grade STEM teacher, and this teacher was doing a rocket, like a force in motion unit. So they had all of the kids. He attached like a reading pledge, a summer reading pledge, and all the kids took a Sharpie and signed the rocket. And they all went outside and launched the rocket, which I thought was so cool. And then went inside and started building their wish list for summer reading. Just something to generate that excitement. And it doesn't have to be like, even if
Mhm.
it's bringing a balloon in for each class and the kids are somehow affixing with tape their names on it and you just let it drift up to the roof, we wouldn't do that outside. Letting them launch it within the space and letting all the balloons be up there in the library for
Mhm.
the last 2 weeks of school, just something to really make it intentional and get kids excited.
Yeah.
The other thing that one of my librarians mentioned, that I think that social aspect for the older kids, where they are developmentally, just leveraging peer kind of that peer pressure piece. She was talking about her 4th and 5th graders and how she has started letting them read together to really promote that simultaneous use aspect so that
Mhm.
they're starting a book here together and then they stop and talk. She's having them form their own book clubs. Like they pick them, they develop them, and they start it and they just read and talk about it so that as they go into summer, they're going to want to keep that going. So
Mhm.
they can do that over social media or over the phone, whatever, they do to keep connected over the summer, but really just leveraging what she knows about where they are developmentally. I thought that was kind of cool too, to get them
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. That rocket sounds so cool. Was that someone in your school district?
Yes. So he,
He needed to take a video of that and send it to us.
yes, and he didn't, but he just told me when I went out. He was a former science teacher as well before he went into the library. So I think that that was kind of a natural way in his brain to do a
Mhm.
launch.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool.
Oh my god, I wanna see that. Tell him if he does that next year, he has to take a video and tag us. Oh my
He
gosh,
said
I
they
wanna
did
see
the
that.
countdown and everything. And I thought it was really cool that they went right back in and directly into building wish lists, which
Mhm.
connects it. So,
Yes, it
yeah.
does. Yeah, that's awesome. So, outside of the school and the school library, do you have any tips for parents or caregivers at home who wanna help their children build that summer reading habit, but some sort of routine at home?
Right. This one is, I think the key is intentionality and choice. So we get a lot of questions about what should be kids be reading over the summer.
Mhm.
And I just think that choice is just really foremost in getting kids like overcoming that any reluctance to read at all and actually building motivation. So I think consistency in routines, and I'm keeping choice at the forefront, not just in selecting the books, but, working with your kids to maybe once a week sit and look at the weekly calendar. So you're going to be at camp on this day, where are we plugging in our reading time? And let them actually do the mapping out, because that's a life skill anyway. So, having them have choice in when they read, where they're reading, and how they're reading, as well as what they're reading. The other piece to that, I think, is like we did this when we used to do readers workshop, but we used to let kids define a reading space. They could bring in a blanket or a pillow. And I did this with my reluctant reader. We would run even to the dollar store or Walmart, and they could buy like a blow up to lay on, but they could only use that when it was reading time. Like that was keeping those positive things, making it special and making that time of week special. I think another thing, like, especially if you're thinking about kind of reluctant readers, is plugging it in and steering them towards having that reading time after they have kind of a high energy depleting
Mhm.
time. They're out swimming, so then we're gonna come in and have a cool down, having crunchy snacks, something that can get the energy out and help them focus on reading as well is always a really good thing. But I think the last piece that I was thinking about was just really framing how we frame it with language. Not have to read, get to read.
Mhm.
When are we going to read? And are we going to read? Right? How
Mhm.
it matters. And seeing you read. So that's your time to read too. We're all reading during this 30-minute time or whatever that window looks like for you.
Mhm.
That way they're not distracted and they really see the modeling. And at the end of the day, that's going to matter most for identity because we get our identity from our families, right? Like, it's where we really form identities largely is in our family. And what's that culture look like in the family? So if I, as mom, am reading and dad's reading, you're more likely to,
Mhm.
unless you're really special and just develop a love of reading, Naomi, on your own.
I have no idea how, why, when, where, or why, but that sounds like my life, honestly. Like, I have to schedule time to read nowadays because life is just gets so busy, and scheduling the time, I feel like that's a great trick, as well as, like, whenever I do have kids, when mom is reading, we're all reading.
Right. It
Yes.
needs to be a bumper sticker. Something you post on the wall when mama's reading, everybody's
Everybody's reading.
love
Yes.
that.
Yes. All right. And I had one more question and then I had like a little rapid fire moment. If you could recommend one mindset or strategy to help students stay engaged with reading all summer, what would it be?
Yes, I kind of alluded to this, so this
Hmm.
is a perfect segue. I think one of the things that we've really been doing here in our libraries this year is really pushing kids to stop and intentionally examine who they are as readers. So, who am I as a reader? What are my in not just and beyond just my interests, like not just an interest survey. We start there. That's a great starting point. But who am I as a reader in terms of patterns, trends, personality? Am I a social reader? Am I individual? Am I not, do I prefer this over that? Am I open to taking bites of other things? And I think that that's an important thing for families to intentionally develop. So, one of the things I think that as families, and regardless of what your family structure looks like research shows that it's not about what the family structure looks like, it's about what happens there. So I know there was a study about national merit scholars, and they were trying to look at what one defining factor was producing national merit scholars across the nation. The only factor that they could find consistently correlated with this was that those students ate dinner, whatever that looked like, around the family table at least 3 times or more a week. And it didn't matter what the family looked like. In some cases, it was grandparents, it was single parents, it was it was just that consistent talking and community that defined that piece. So I think that's kind of what we need to do with kids. That mindset is really get them to stop and say, not just, I don't like to read, I'm not a reader. Who am I as a reader? And really push them into cultivating and developing that piece. So that's the mindset. I'm a
Hmm.
reader. Everybody's a reader. I may not happily engage with reading, or I may not happily engage with nonfiction reading or this type of reading, or maybe I just only want manga, right? Manga,
Hmm.
manga, manga, or comics. But who am I as a reader? So, really, just
Hmm.
starting there, I think, is a great starting point for cultivating readers in our homes and in our schools.
100%. Yeah. I feel like anytime that people tell me that they don't like reading or anything, I'm like, you just haven't found the right book because a lot of the time yeah, a lot of the time I also give a lot of book recommendations on social media and people will ask me like randomly in public and I'm just like, "Well, what are some of like your favorite TV shows or movies and stuff?" Because I need to know like I can't just recommend you any book because
Right.
you
I
may
don't
not
know
like
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had friends be like that they don't really like reading or anything, and as I get to know them, then I'll recommend something, and I've made a couple of my friends, like, readers now because they only read in this, like, specific genre, whether it's, like, sports romance or they only read mystery or thrillers. I read pretty much everything. The one genre that I've, like, noticed that I don't enjoy as much is fantasy, which is strange. I love dystopian, I love graphic novels, I love mystery, everything contemporary, but fantasy has to be very specific for me to like it, so
Right.
I've definitely also, like, honed in on what kind of reader I am because I was reading fantasy for so long, and then for a while I was like, Wait a second. I don't know if I love this. So maybe I read too many fantasies when I was a young adult, but
That's
yeah,
so
I love that
interesting.
that trick of
But readers can do that. Readers
mhm,
can tell you who they are as readers.
mhm,
Right? I think that's a natural part of being a reader. We
mhm,
identify that way. So
mhm,
that's the starting point where we need to get kids. And I love how you said that. Like, I can read almost anything, giving them bites of things like,
mhm,
book tasting is very popular. And I like that too. I went on a cruise recently and the spa there had a massage tasting, like
mhm.
just mini massages so they could show you the different kinds. I thought that was so cool because something I'd never had an interest in a stone massage, but I walked out of there like, "That will be the one I next time."
Yeah.
So, there's the value of that too, but I think that is really cool knowing
Mhm.
yourself as a reader, and I love your own insight to yourself.
Yes, it's been many years to become self-aware of what I do like and what I'm not
Neat.
enjoying, but yeah, I had a little rapid fire, should be pretty quick, but this is kind of a hard one, but ebooks or audiobooks?
So I guess I'm a moody reader because
Mhm.
it depends on my mood. I currently have one of each that
Okay.
I'm engaged in. I don't often do 2 books at a time unless it's fiction and nonfiction because I can compartmentalize that better, but I have one audiobook that I'm just so enthralled with, and I'm in the car with it. So I have a 2-hour commute every day,
Mhm.
and I just love to get in there and pop that in, and then I have one that I read at night, as I'm going to bed, and that is on my phone.
Yeah.
So I would say depends on the mood.
Mhm. Yes, I do that too. I usually do, like, a fiction book and a graphic novel at the same time, always. If
Love
I
that.
read, like, 100 books in 1 year, it's like 50 of them are graphic novels. Like, I'll go novel, graphic novel, novel,
Yeah.
graphic novel. So I read a lot, but it's a lot of the time, it's a lot of graphic novels too.
Awesome.
What is your ideal summer reading spot?
So I will probably sound boring because, the beach is obviously such a phenomenal place, but I will kind of add a little piece to that. I really like to be in a cold place where I have a
Mm,
warm blanket
mhm.
and ocean. So I like to be snugly, but I like to have the ocean there. That's my ideal spot.
Love that. Very New England in the evening vibes.
Exactly.
Love that.
Alaska,
Mhm.
somewhere. Yeah.
Love. And what is one book from Sora Sweet Reads that you're especially excited about this summer?
I have a couple that I'm thrilled about, but the number one is Dalen and the River Secrets.
Ooh, okay.
That one really intrigues me because in the book summary, the character is basically facing a fear.
Mhm.
And I thought, I have a major fear of heights. So when I go to our local theme park, which is Carowinds. They have one of those, the Windjammer, which goes up 300 feet and the swing at the top. And I want for the life of me do that. When I
Mhm.
watch my husband, I watch my kids when they were little. I am going to read that book and ride the Windjammer this summer.
Okay.
So I'm ready to take on a fear. And I thought, I'm going to read through the lens of a character who's addressing a fear. And I'm going to gain courage from that and take that on this summer.
Yeah, oh my god. I'm gonna look this book up in our on our collection, and I feel like everyone could definitely learn something from it. We all have, like, our irrational fear,
Right,
but
right.
that's awesome.
There's so
Yeah.
many cool ones on there. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Just the
Mhm.
title grabbed me right there, right? I was like, "I don't even know, but I have to read this one." There were and I love young adult as well, so there were a couple there I wanna look into, but I'm very excited.
Yay. All right. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your wonderful insights. If you're an educator looking to build more inclusive and engaging reading experiences, explore what Sora has to offer, and be sure to subscribe for more classroom book talk conversations with educators who are bringing books to life every single day. And we will see you next time. Bye.